Founding Without Funding podcast. This is episode 5. And today, what we're going to do is we'll do some questions here today. So, we've been going through a few of the concepts, and I've had some people send me some questions over social media. So, I'm going to go ahead and answer those. Now, you can also drop any questions you have in the chat. Happy to answer anybody's questions that you have live. We are streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Kick, X, all the different platforms. So I can see all the messages pop up from all the different platforms. So go ahead and drop a comment from any of the platforms that you're on if you have any questions. Right now, we'll go ahead and start with some questions that were already sent to me in my DMs. And I'm going to go ahead and answer them here. So Emily asked, do you ever have a moment where you're like, this might not work? What did you do on those days? Great question there, Emily. Well, that's most days, right? Most days you don't know if what you're doing is going to work or not until it's proven out to the marketplace. So, one of the things we talk about all the time, you got to prove your idea out to the marketplace. But until you do, while you're trying to get there, pretty much every day is like that. And I know a lot of founders know what I mean by waking up every morning, checking your phone. Hopefully some sales came through over the night, especially if you're waiting on that first miracle of somebody to actually buy the product or service for the first time. And so, it's basically every day that you wake up and you don't really know if you can continue or want to continue. But that's what being a founder and an entrepreneur is getting up every day, hoping that what you're doing is working. And if it's not working, keep working at it, maybe shifting, changing. Emily, that's basically what it is every day. And you just got to keep pushing forward. And a question from Andre here. What's the most painful L you took in business that actually made you better? I want the real story, not the polished one. I've taken a lot of losses in business, that's for sure. One of the biggest losses, I've lost like 400,000 on a property. Real estate is risky. I'm going to do a episode on real estate here shortly, and it can have big gains, but also big losses if you get caught in the wrong situation. So I've taken some big losses in real estate. I definitely learned a lot from them. But I think every loss in general, even the small losses, are just all ways to learn. So the big ones might leave you scarred. You might be a little scarred from your big losses, a little traumatized maybe. But at the end of the day, every loss, even a loss, that day, or maybe it's a product or service and you lost money on a marketing budget because you tried it and it didn't work. Everything is essentially something to learn from, and really getting used to taking losses. I've been in situations where, I have very little and your back's against the wall, and you can lose everything. And that's one of the things about being an entrepreneur is that you can go way past zero. So I love one of the speeches from Jim Rohn, one of my favorite motivational speakers. And he said, back in the day, you used to go to zero, you used to be broke, and that was it. And now you can whistle right on by zero, especially as an entrepreneur or, and a founder of businesses. You can go from being worth $1 million to being hundreds of thousands of dollars in the hole, right? Which has happened to me before. So you play big to win big, but you can also lose big. So I think you got to be used to taking losses. You have to embrace taking losses, and you have to get up and keep moving forward. At the end of the day, that's what I would say as far as losses. Again, my biggest loss is probably from real estate, which you can make a lot of money in, but you can also lose a lot of money. And sometimes it's kind of the luck of the draw there. All right. Again, I'm answering some questions that were sent to me in my DM, but you can feel free to ask any questions live. We're streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Kick, X, all the different platforms, and I can see the comments from all the platforms. So feel free to drop any live questions that you have there. And let's see here. Oh, question. Not going to lie, sometimes building a business feels lonely. How do you deal with that part? Well, I think that's more of a personal question as far as feeling lonely, as far as your, maybe friends and family. But as far as feeling lonely professionally, I would answer that, Of course, building a business feels lonely, especially if you're doing it by yourself, especially if you don't have any, co-founders and people that you're working with. At the end of the day, it does feel lonely, especially if nobody believes in your business. And even if you have a great personal relationship with your friends or family, it's sometimes tough when they don't believe in your business, right? And so you're kind of fighting to try to prove yourself at all times, and that does feel lonely. Even if in your personal life you're not lonely, sometimes it feels like you're alone with your business, and it's just you and your business against the world. And that's okay, because that's what it takes to make that business successful. It's got to be you and that business against the world. And it's something that is almost required for you to be able to power through and have that vision of what you want to do with yourself, your life, and your business. All right, I got a question from Shannon here. How do you hustle without frying your brain? Grind hard, then burn out for a week straight. Any tips? Um, I think that's kind of like a question about work-life balance. I think every founder, CEO, entrepreneur would give you a different answer on that. I think at the end of the day, it's a personal thing. My answer would always be that there is no work-life balance when it comes to starting businesses, running businesses, and just being an entrepreneur and a founder in general. It's really no work-life balance, especially because there is no turning off the work. So even though you may have balance, you may try to set aside some time for friends, family, vacations, whatever it may be. At the end of the day, we all know that work never stops when you're the boss or the founder or the CEO or whatever the case is. So I think that's the real problem, is that it never turns off. But I know some people have success with blocking off parts of their schedule and different things like that. So I think it's more of a personal question. But at the end of the day, the gist is that work never stops, and so this is a difficult occupation to have that proper work-life balance. All right, another question here. So Sarah is asking, I want to pre-sell my offer like you talk about. Can you walk through exactly how to do it without ads and pretend like I'm five? LOL. Okay, so to do it without ads. So if you're looking to come up with an idea and pre-sell it, essentially, to do it without ads, it's definitely a little bit more difficult. It's something where you're going to have to really focus on probably making content, or even just getting out there and doing cold calls, maybe finding some lists out there, also working on LinkedIn a lot. These are the type of things you can do without running ads. But the easiest way is to get some ads out there. And I talk about it all the time with Meta, with Instagram, Facebook. You can do $1 a day. And so if you can't put $1 a day aside to fund your business, test your ideas and your services, you're probably not all the way committed, right? Oh, everyone has $30 a month that they could take to put towards their business. And so that at least something's happening. Now, if you're only spending $1 a day, you're probably going to need to really be hustling on the content level and all these other different paths, because that's not going to be enough. Typically, when I test an idea, I'm going to spend $10 a day on Facebook ads, Facebook and Instagram, to just put it out there as a test. And then, of course, you got to have all the automation hooked up, right? You got to have the automated text and emails and everything going out. If you don't have that, you can set it up. There's classes and courses on it. My business, your digital business partner, we do that for you. We can handle setting up all your automation, your funnels and your ads and all that kind of good stuff. So there's a lot of ways to do it. That probably has a little bit more of a budget than you're talking about there, Sarah, because it sounds like you don't have much of a budget to advertise. You're trying to figure out different ways. So there's a lot of different ways to do it without advertising. But I just love the shortcut of the advertising. I love the fact that you could put anywhere from $1 to $10,000 a day or more on the ads and test them out very quickly. All right, let me go ahead and pull up some more questions here. And again, we're streaming on all the different platforms. I can see comments come in from all the different platforms, so feel free to drop any questions you have. So Lily's asking, what's the first thing a new founder should spend money on, and what should they absolutely avoid spending money on? So that's a great question. I would say as a new founder that you should spend money on ads. because that's one of the things, that I'm biggest on, right? Before you build it all out, before you do all kinds of stuff, before you hire a team or get an office or hire a secretary, I would get an idea down on paper, get it up on some type of website landing page, get ads, send the emails and the text and call them and figure out how to make some sales. That would be the one thing that I would spend money on first. A lot of people think that they should do all kinds of branding and pre-launch promotion, and they should get an office and a secretary and an assistant and all these type of things. That's what I wouldn't spend money on until you have sales. Those are essentially rewards for having sales, right? Those are, things that you're going to do with the money that you get from sales. But if you spend money on that, then there's not going to be any money to advertise, to get out there, to make the product or service sell, and then you're not going to have any sales. So a lot of people do get themselves in that situation, spending money on unnecessary things. I think it's definitely something where if you're a founder and you're wondering what you should be spending money on, I think you should be spending money on figuring out what products work, what products or services are selling in the marketplace, which again is called reality, right? And then at the end of the day, just focus on scaling that before you build out all kinds of other stuff. And honestly, Lily, I think at the end of the day, a lot of founders, don't want to do things themselves when they really should be. And so, I talked about a story where when I was already worth a lot of money and had a bunch of real estate and stuff like that, when I first got my real estate and my mortgage license and actually started a national lender and a real estate brokerage here in Florida, when I first got into that side of real estate, I was making cold calls because that's what had to be done when we first made our real estate brokerage. And then I was calling leads as they came in. And, I don't say that I was already successful to brag, but the point is that I was nowhere near somebody who needed to make cold calls, sales calls, stuff like that. So there's a lot of people that have no money and don't already have companies. And, I had short-term rental properties at the time and commercial property and all kinds of things that I was doing. And I was owning these properties, but I had not been on the real estate side of it until I got my real estate license and my mortgage broker license and started those two businesses. And so, it was something to where I was in a new business, I was in a new venture, and something had to get done. And if that meant there was cold calls to do, if that meant I was, doing inbound leads that were calling and I had to sit there and answer the phone, that's what I did because that's what had to be done. And I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of founders that want to spend money on things that they could do themselves. One of the things that you should not be spending money on, in my opinion, is graphic design. You can, in 2 seconds, make your own graphics with AI, with Sora or any of these other programs. So I would definitely not be spending any money when it comes to graphics. That's one of the great things about business. And that's one of the great things that I love right now, especially because I love creating new businesses, getting new ideas out there. And to do that and to test these things, you need to make creatives, right? You need ads, you need memes, you need all these different things, whether it's for advertising or organic content. And usually they all require designs, whether it's creating your ads and your social content or your website or your logo, all these different types of things. I would not be spending $1 on that right now because at the end of the day, you have all the AI tools to your advantage and you can, it might take you a while. I would recommend, I typically make like hundreds of versions of the logo and then, figure out which one works best and fine tune it and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of founders get caught up in things that they could do themselves, that they want to pay somebody else to do, especially ones that are getting in this to be like the boss, to like prove that they're the boss and they're like too cool to do something. We talk about, I come from the music industry originally, and we talk a lot about people that are too cool to pass out flyers. And I never was. Right, me and my business partners and my team, we were never too cool to pass out flyers. We were going to music festivals, we were going to all these different places. We're passing out CDs, we're passing out flyers, and meanwhile, I'm the CEO of the company. We have a whole staff there that I'm paying to be there and to do these type of things, but I'm doing them too because that's what it took, and that's what we needed to do, and that was the goal. So why would I stand around and watch my staff do something that I'm not doing myself. That reminds me of a great story of Marcus Lemonis from The Prophet, definitely one of my big inspirations. We were lucky enough to have him come speak at one of our events for my company, Real Estate Live Events. He came and spoke with me there at the event, and one of the things that really stood out to me is that it was a smaller crowd than he was expecting, and so when he came in, he was very happy. And so when he came and before he got on stage, he told me, "Look, I love that this is an intimate crowd, and I'm going to do something different. I'm going to talk a lot longer than I'm supposed to, and I'm going to be more interactive and talk to people in the crowd," which was great. He brought people up on stage. He threw a brick through the wall, which was crazy. So he did all kinds of stuff, and it was great. So thank you to Marcus Amonis for being a speaker at our real estate conference. And when I was introducing him to the stage, there were still tables out that my staff was clearing out, right? Because we had panels before Marcus Lemonis's keynote speech. I was hosting some panels. And so my team was changing over the stage to get ready for him to come on. And Marcus was standing there. And what he did was he started grabbing the tables with my staff and started putting them away. And, it's definitely something that stood out. And it's funny because there was somebody in the crowd that I heard, a woman in the crowd saying, "Wow, that's so humble and amazing that he immediately started helping these people," which is so true that, somebody like Marcus Lemonis, essentially a billionaire, comes and, he's helping out. He sees people moving tables around, getting ready for his speech. And he's like, "Why would I be sitting here?" It wasn't even his staff, right? So imagine if it's your staff and you're not helping out. What does that show about you, right? That a billionaire is helping your staff out, because why would he just sit there while they're doing that, getting the stage ready for him? Because he is a humble guy, he's a professional guy. And so a lot of people, if they were the boss of the company, they might just sit there and let their staff do that. Meanwhile, this person who is not their boss, who was not the founder of this company, came and was helping them out. So I think that's something, a great story there that you brought me to, which is essentially, don't be one of the founders or entrepreneurs that thinks they're too good to do the things. Don't be too cool to pass out flyers. Don't be too cool to do the sales yourself, get on the calls yourself, whatever it takes. Get on the webinars, get on the podcast, whatever it takes to get your business out there. You're putting in the work as a founder, and you're going to get your reward, but your reward is not sitting back and being too cool to put in work. It's definitely not sitting back and being too cool to just sit there and watch your staff, do things for you. It doesn't make sense. If you're there, you might as well do it right then. No better time. Okay, next question here. Again, go ahead and drop any questions there in the chat, no matter what platform you're on. I see the questions, it looks like here. Question from Omar Ali. From London. All right, shout out to London. I have great times in London. I've been to London a few times and had amazing times. I know some great people out there. So Omar's asking, how do you decide whether to start a service business or a product business when you're bootstrapping? That's a great question. So in the book, Founding Without Funding, I talk a lot about, starting a business with a product or a service. Now, services are typically easier. So Omar's question here is, how do you decide whether to start a service business or a product business? So if you are still at the point where you don't know what you're going to do, and you're just trying to find the best, route to go, I would say that a service is typically the best route, because you don't have to do as much. To have a product, you have to, build out a product or make a product or find a product that you're selling and source everything. And you're dealing with shipping and you're dealing with all this different stuff. So it's especially harder to figure it all out in advance, as opposed to a service. You're essentially able to start launching it right away. And there's some, things that are kind of a combination, right, between a product and a service. And so those as well. But anything that is a straight product that you're selling, buying for this much, selling for this much, at the end of the day, it's going to be a little bit harder than if you're just have a service that you're offering that is unique, that people need and that people will pay for. And again, you need to get it in front of the market enough to see if anybody's going to pay for it. So it depends on what you're looking to do. I guess typically a fan more of services if that's something that you are, first starting your first business, especially if it's something where you're saying, I want to get, I want to get going as soon as possible. I would say that it's a service business. But Omar, at the end of the day, your decision whether to start a product or a service business is really, I think something where you should search what you're looking to do because, a lot of the times just starting a company just to make money. So asking me, should I do a product or a service, kind of lets me know that you're probably just thinking just make money, make money. And there's nothing wrong with that to be looking to make money to feed your family. But at the end of the day, you probably want to search for something that you want to do or that you're passionate about or a great idea that you have that's unique. I wouldn't be worrying ahead of time whether it's a product or a service. I would be worrying about if it's what you want to do, if it's what you're passionate about, if you've done some market research and seen if it's something that you can do. What's amazing is that I used to talk about this with Google, and now it's more of a chat GPT thing. But it's so amazing how many people want to start a business or do start a business or have an idea for a product or service and they don't Google it. They don't Google it to see the competition. How are you going to get into a market when you don't know what the competition is? That can show you a lot. It could show you that there's a lot missing, or it could show you that it's probably not something you want to get into, or it could show you that there's so much competition that it's so saturated that if you don't have anything super special to stand out, it might not be worth getting into it. You might also find there's a company with the same exact name in the same exact field. You're probably going to see other companies with the same name in different fields if you're choosing a name that's anything, remotely, general and universal. But at the end of the day, make sure you Google your company. Make sure you type in ChatGPT. Is this a good idea to start a blank company in whatever? Or maybe you want to ask GPT what company you should start when you tell it all your strengths. So that's a good thing. And, I don't use AI for the end all be all, but it's so great to just get ideas flowing and to get feedback going back and forth, right? So it's definitely something I would type into GPT if you're trying to figure out. So back to the last question of whether you should do a service business or a product business, maybe you should type into GPT, here's my strengths, here's where I have connections. These are the industries I'm looking to be in, or I have a history in these, this industry, and here are my strengths. And let GPT tell you what type of business that you should start, and then ask it how you should do it. One of the great things about GPT is it'll give you an exact plan and say, this is how you can do it. And this has worked for these people. They've followed this method and it worked for them in this way. So if you're not using that to your advantage, that's kind of crazy to me that in this day and age, you would be spending this time thinking about a business, even creating a business or a service or product without taking that step for, a few minutes, 5 minutes on GPT to find out what are the other businesses in this? How does it work? What's the competition? Do you have a niche in it? Is it something that you should do? All these different things. Is there a company with the same name? Is the website already taken? Or the social media handles already taken? When I make my company names, whether the social media is available for that exact name or not is a factor in what I'm deciding to name that company. The website being available for the exact company name is absolutely the number one thing that has to be there, right? If on GoDaddy there's not a website available for that exact business name, then that's not what I'm calling the company. The website has to be there. The social media hopefully is there, or at least most of them. Maybe you have to add something to one of them because something is taken up. But that's also amazing to me how many people make a company and then, and nowadays, like if you made the company a long time ago before this was so important, that's different. But if you're making a company in this day and age, how do you have some kind of off website? Do you have a .net or something because the .com was already taken? These are things you need to search out before, and you need to make sure that your company name matches the exact name with the .com website that you can purchase. That should be your first search. Okay, what are we going to name our company? Come up with a name, and first you search, is there something with that name already out there, and is it in this industry, or will it be mixed up? And make sure, go on GoDaddy, make sure that the website is available for that name. Don't do some other name. Don't do a .net or whatever it is. Give yourself the best opportunity and the best branding from the start. Just don't name it that name if the website's not available, if most of the social media handles are not available. These are things that I look at every time before I come up with the name of a business. You need to look at what's already out there. You don't want to be halfway into this and then all of a sudden realize, oh man, there's another company with this name, or we can't get the website, or all the social media handles are already taken for that name, and so people are confusing us with this other profile. So that's definitely something that you should check out there. Let's see here. Another question. How do you know when your idea is trash versus you just being scared? Good question there. So how do you know if your idea is trash or if you're just scared? Well, the first thing is you don't. So let the market decide. So that's a lot of what founding without funding is that you don't really know if your idea is trash or not. The market will tell you. And so the biggest thing is you have to put the offer together. You have to put up some kind of landing page or website or whatever it is that you're doing, whatever funnel you're putting people through, advertise or social, organic, whatever it is, you're pushing them to something to make the purchase. You're following up, you're putting them in a CRM, you're sending the texts, the emails, all that kind of good stuff. And then the market will tell you, as long as you're doing it properly. If you're not getting it in front of people, then the market can't tell you anything because you haven't told the market about your product yet. But, that's a good question there, Lewis. How do you know when your idea is trash? Is that you don't. The market will tell you. The market is reality, right? Everything else doesn't matter. What you think about your idea doesn't matter. What your friends and family think about your idea doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the market. Is it responding to your product or service? And if not, we talk about how to go about that at the end of the day, in the book on switching up what you're doing. But at the end of the day, the market is going to tell you. So that's actually kind of a beautiful thing. We should take that as a good thing, right? Is that you don't need to sit there all day and decide, is this idea good or not? The market will tell you. So just figure out how to present it and then present it. And just know that the market's going to tell you, so there is no guessing. So take that, guessing out of the equation, and that should lift some weight off your shoulders. And know that I don't have to be the decision maker. I don't have to make the right exact decision to, change my life if I continue, want to keep doing this or not doing this or whatever. The market will tell you pretty immediately. And that's one of the great things about nowadays and the ads and all the kind of stuff you can do is you can really test things in the market very quickly. All right, I think we can do one more question, and I'll do another episode of these because I do have some more questions to get to, and I see a question here in the chat that's coming in live too, and so I will answer that one, and feel free to shoot me a DM with any questions anybody wants them answered on the next episode here. So a question from Sienna is, what's one thing you wish new founders would stop doing immediately, like the number one habit that kills momentum? I would say there's a lot of different answers to that. I would say the thing that I think founders should stop doing the most is not selling. I think planning, too much planning, right? There's a shirt in our store, on our merch store on foundingwithoutfunding.com called that says launching is better than planning, and that's so true. I think too many founders are planning, and they're not selling, and launching and testing their idea in the marketplace, something I preach so much. So I think that's what I would say founders to stop doing. And I would say stop building out things and also stop spending money on things you probably don't need, assistants, secretaries, offices, these type of things. Focus on your product, focus on your service, focus on your your online presence, your content, your advertising, your funnel, your CRM follow-ups, you know, and your clients and your sales. That's what I would say to focus on the most.